So I had my appointment, they checked my belly, they did the ultrasound, they did my blood pressure again, it was still high. They waited 10 minutes, they came back, the blood pressure was still high. So at that point, I think they checked it like 4 or 5 times again. They let me kind of just like sit in the room for like, I think we were there for like 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours. They just kept like making me wait and then taking my blood pressure again, making me wait, take my blood pressure again. So ultimately they were like, okay, so it's not going down, that's not good, and so we're gonna have to admit you and you're gonna have this baby. I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my god, like I can't have this baby today. Oh my god, I was like freaking out. We were all freaking out. So we left the doctor's appointment because the hospital that we had the babies, it's a hospital for moms and babies. Like that's what the hospital is. It's like specifically for pregnant women. So the building with my doctor was like on this side, and then the rest of the hospital, like where you had the baby, was like attached to it. So we went out into the parking lot in front of the building. We went to the car, we got our bags, and we just walked over to like the hospital entrance. So we went in and we're like, yeah, we have to go back to triage just like the week before, and they checked me all in. And then a doctor from my doctor's office was the one on call. So he was actually a new doctor, and I had never seen him before, but he, you know, he came from the office because my doctor was not on call. She was not able to like be there when I was there. My family doctor, that is. So he came in and he was saying, you know, he kind of walked me through everything we were gonna do, what they were thinking, and then I guess at that point we were still kind of hopeful that I would just go into labor. And that it would kind of progress, and we were hoping to have a natural, like I kind of knew in the back of my mind that we were gonna have to have a C-section, which I didn't really want. I wanted to have a natural birth, but I knew it was so early, and with my blood pressure, I kind of like subconsciously, like I knew we were gonna have to have a C-section, like I was gonna have to have it. But so at that point, like when we first got into the triage and the doctor came and he talked to me, we were kind of hoping to just kind of induce, like try to get something to happen. Alright, so where was I at? I had to change my battery. These batteries like don't hold, like they're charged. It's so annoying. So okay, so where was I? Alright, so I'm in triage. I've been checked in. I'm kind of waiting for a room in the main hospital, so to get out of the triage. So as I'm in still the triage, so the doctor, I can't remember his name. It's the only time I ever really met him. He suggested that they put this little tampon looking thing up into my what's the word? I don't know, up into my vagina. Can't think of the word, like the cervix. There we go. Jeez, like pregnancy brain still lingering a year later. So it's this little like thing that has medicine in it, but it's supposed to induce labor. So it's supposed to kind of like get things started, soften things up, and kind of get things working. So basically I was 0% dilated. Like I wasn't dilated at all, and obviously I was, you know, super early. I was only, you know, 34 weeks pregnant at that point. He checked me all out, and I was not dilated at all, obviously. So it was so painful when he put in that little device thing that's supposed to like kind of start the induction process. It was the worst. It was awful. Like I don't even want to think about it because it was that bad. I was crying, and it was just not a fun time. It was not fun. It was awful. And after he got the thing in there, he said, you know, I was supposed to leave it in there, and it's supposed to help induce things, so it's gonna start labor. So it was so early. It was about, I would say like 6 or 7, maybe like 6:30 in the evening that Monday night. So my blood pressure, they had, you know, they had the cuff on me. I was like all strapped in. They did the IV, and I was, you know, I was just kind of waiting. It was like a lot of waiting. We were just sitting there, like the blood pressure cuff would go off every like half hour, and it would like, you know, log my blood pressure. And I had the monitor thing on my belly, so it was like, you know, making sure that her heartbeat was good. And I had my IV in, and it was just a lot. So I was on medication for my blood pressure, trying to keep it down. So at that point, it was about 7. You know, the doctors were in and out. My parents had gotten there because I told them not to come until we were in a room. So after we were settled in the room, then I let them know to come. They came. And so that day, obviously, we were going to be staying because we didn't know when the baby was going to come. So both Derek and my mom stayed with me overnight. My dad didn't stay because there was nowhere for him to sleep. So my mom and Derek were the ones that were going to stay with me that night, which I was so grateful for, that my mom was able to stay there, because I always wanted her to be there. Anyway, so it was great that she was able to stay with me and Derek, because obviously we needed the support, because we were so scared. Like it was just like so crazy, and things were happening so fast that we were really scared. Especially like just talking for myself, like I was terrified. I was trying to like be calm and not think about it too much, but I was really scared. It was a lot, especially being so early. Like if I would have been like 37 weeks or 38 weeks, like I feel like I wouldn't have been so stressed out. But I was like 34.5 weeks, so it was a lot. It was a lot on my mind. I'm sure that didn't help my blood pressure. Like it was just a lot. So I think it was about 6:30, around 7, 8, around there. I don't know. I can't remember the times as well. But I was starting to get hungry because I had lunch at around like 11:30 or 12. Just like I had a little snack here in the house because I was thinking I was gonna eat right after my doctor's appointment. Like I hadn't even thought like, oh, I should probably eat before my doctor's appointment. So I was starving. I was so hungry, and basically I told the doctors, like, can I eat, because I'm so hungry, like I don't know what to do, like I'm really hungry. And they were like, no, you can just have water or juice and that's it. So I was like getting so mad. I was like hangry. I was like full on hangry. So around 8:30, like I kept bugging them, like I'm really hungry, like I need to eat, like I'm really hungry, and they wouldn't, like they were not budging. So finally the nurse I guess I got annoying enough that she called my doctor, my family doctor, and like talked to her, because she was like the head honcho of like the doctor group. So they talked to her and they told her like, I'm like starving here, like I need to eat. So they decided that the baby wasn't going to be born, because basically they didn't want me to eat, because if I had to have a C-section, like an emergency C-section, like it's major surgery, so you can't have anything in your belly, like you have to fast for that. So they didn't want me to eat in case I had a C-section. But basically I was like so hungry, and they checked all my, they checked my blood pressure, they checked everything, and they said, okay, well, we don't think this baby's gonna come tonight, so you can eat. The happiest moment of my life. So I was so happy. And they're like, oh well, because it was like 9, I think it was like 8:30 or 9. It was late. It was like 9:30 actually. I think it was 9:30. And yeah, it was definitely like past 9, because I was getting really aggravated because I was so hungry. I was so hungry. So around 9:30 they're like, okay, well the cafeteria is closed. Like the food thing is closed, so all we have is like a tuna sandwich or a turkey sandwich. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't, like that's not what I want. And my dad had made dinner like, a bunch of hours early, like around 4, that he had made dinner. And I'm thinking, oh, I would love some rice and beans and chicken right now, like that's what I want. And obviously he had leftovers, so he was like such a champ. He went to the house, he brought me food. I ended up eating at like almost 10 o'clock at night. I was so happy. Like that, just like, I don't know, I feel like being hungry like that was kind of making me more anxious, because I kind of like kept worrying about that, like I was so hungry. So my dad came with the food. He's like saved the day, and I ate. It was probably around 10 at that point, and the doctor's like, all right, well, try to get some rest. Like the doctor, the nurses would be in and out on me, basically checking up on me, checking the baby's heartbeat and my blood pressure and all that, which was okay because my blood pressure actually had kind of stabilized and it was at a better number. So I went to bed that night. I, you know, obviously like after dinner or whatever, it was probably like 11, we went to bed, and I had to pee like 700 times that night. It was one of the worst nights, and they kept bringing me water and juice and stuff, so like I would take a sip and I would have to pee for like 10 minutes. It was so annoying. But I really didn't get much sleep. I think I got a lot of sleep, or I think I got a decent amount of sleep around maybe like 4 in the morning. So maybe like I had like a 2-hour stretch of sleep from 4 to 6. But before that, I was getting up every like 45 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to pee. It was really intense. So it was a lot to get in and out of bed. Huge pregnant belly, the little band on for the heart, you know, the heart monitor, my IV, and like the whole little cart thing that I would have to like walk into the bathroom with. And it was so annoying having to pee with like the little string from the thing that was like supposed to make me start like having labor pains or whatever. So it was just a lot, and I had to pee like so many times, literally like every 45 minutes I had to get up and pee. So yeah, so I finally felt like just asleep like at 4 in the morning. I slept for like 2 hours, which is so nice. And then I woke up at 6, and that's when all the nurses kind of started coming in, and at that point I couldn't sleep anymore because they kept coming in and out. And then once I was like fully awake is when panic hit me, and I was freaking out. My blood pressure went right back up, the way it was like the day before. Basically overnight my blood pressure was amazing, it was fine, and then once I woke up it went through the roof again. And like my doctor had told me, like if you get dizzy, if you start to see like sparkles or like stars in your vision, if you start not being able to hear, you need to say it right away, because that is, I was gonna go into having a seizure. So which is basically like preeclampsia is what that's called. So if my blood pressure gets high enough, it could cause preeclampsia, which could lead into a seizure for me. Like I could die, the baby could die, like it could be this whole fiasco. So that's what they told me right away in the morning. So I was actually having contractions. So I did start having contractions. It felt to me like the contractions that I was feeling felt to me like the baby moving. So they were happening for a good long while, like the day, you know, the day before, before I woke up in the morning. And I just didn't know. Like I had no idea, because it just felt like she was moving. It was like a funny pressure. It felt like a pressure and like a slide. So like whenever I would get a contraction, it just felt like the baby moving. It was never painful, and it just felt like she was moving. So I think that morning, or maybe the day before, I can't remember. I can't keep things straight because it was, you know, over a year ago now. But one of the nurses that was checking on the heart rate monitor for the baby, she was like, "Oh, are you having contractions?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think so." And then I had a contraction. I just felt like the baby was moving. She's like, "Oh, that's one there." I'm like, "What? That's a contraction?" Like I literally thought that she was moving, and that was happening for like all evening and all night the day before. So that was crazy. I had no idea that's what a contraction was. It didn't feel like a tightening. It wasn't like painful. It was like just like, it felt like pressure and like a slide. Like it just felt like the baby was moving. Going back to the morning, so I woke up at 6. The doctors were, you know, the nurses were in and out. My blood pressure went through the roof, and around 7, I would say, I started seeing kind of stars. Like it wasn't star, it was like a sparkle. It was like glitter in my vision. So I told the nurses right away that I was seeing glitter, and from the time that I told them that until the time they were in there giving me paperwork to sign for a C-section, it was like a couple of minutes. It was crazy. Like from the moment that I told them that I was seeing glitter, like it was like a madhouse. Nurses were running in and out. They were prepping me for the C-section. They were calling my doctor, because she, like my family doctor, she was kind of the one calling the shots with everything. The nurses were in and out, fixing this, fixing that, doing this, doing that, and Derek and my mom were just like standing in the corner, like freaking out. So then once the whole rushing started, once I had the paper signed for C-section, you know, the waivers that they give you and all that, I started freaking out. Like, there was so much commotion, so much stuff going on, because they were, you know, they were trying to get the OR, they were trying to get me ready, they were trying to get Derek ready, because he was obviously going to be in the room with me, in the operating room. And I started freaking out. So then I started crying, like panic crying, like overwhelmed, I can't deal with this crying. And my mom started crying, and Derek was just like stunned, like he didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I was so overwhelmed. And they came and they checked my stomach and they scrubbed me down, and that hurt so much. Like, my belly was so stretched out, that like the scrubbing, you know, it's like that maple, that really red weird liquid stuff that they used to scrub. They scrubbed me with that thing, and then they had to like wipe it all down and like clean it, they cleaned my whole belly and down like my bikini area. Like, it was crazy. It was a lot of stuff going on. My doctor came, like, I guess they called her in, and she like came so fast, and she like explained everything to my mom. Like, I didn't even know this at the time, but she like came over to me, she started talking to me, she told me what was gonna happen, and she really reassured me and tried to like calm me down, because I was freaking out. And then they wheeled me off, and they, you know, they had Derek get all like in his little scrub get up. They gave him a little hat, the mask, and then they wheeled us off to the operating room. They wheeled me into the operating room, and that was probably the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life. I felt so powerless, and like I just like didn't have any control, and I was so scared that something was gonna happen to Amara, like my baby. I was like thinking, oh my god, this is so scary, like I don't know what's gonna happen. I was freaking out. I was completely freaking out. And so they wheeled me in, and Derek they had to have him wait out in the hallway until they had me all set up, and then right before they start everything, then they bring him in and he sits next to me. Like, I was like laying down, and they put him right next to me, right next to my face. So I go in, you know, they wheel me in, and they move me from the bed to the operating table. And this table, like what I'm actually laying on, is so thin. It was like this thin, like this thin. So like it was just like down the middle of my back, and then it had the two arm things like just straight out. So my arms were like strapped in like this, and my legs, I don't remember how my legs were, but they were like, I think they were straight out. No, actually, I think they were separate. They were like spread eagle. And so I can't see anything, because I'm just laying back, like just looking at the ceiling, and all I see is everyone in scrubs. I can't see anyone's face because they all have masks on, they all have their hats on, and I literally could just see eyes, and that's it. And I felt so overwhelmed and so like powerless that I went into a full-on panic attack, full panic attack. I've never had a panic attack in my entire life until that moment. And I started screaming and crying, like uncontrollable, screaming. It was like, I couldn't even believe that was my voice coming out of my mouth. Like, I was terrified. I was completely terrified, complete panic attack. So I started screaming, and one of the nurses, or I don't know who it was, one of the people that was running around, she came up to me. She tried to calm me down. She was like, okay honey, it's okay, it's okay. She grabbed my hand, she was telling me it's gonna be okay, just relax, try to breathe. And she talked to me for like maybe a few minutes. I don't even remember. Like, time went by so differently for me in that moment. Like, some things were a blur and some things were so slow. So I feel like she was there for a few minutes. I don't know, it could have been longer. I can't really remember. But she finally was able to calm me down. She was like holding my hands, like rubbing my head and trying to calm me down. So finally I calmed down. I stopped screaming. I stopped crying, because I was like full on screaming. So I finally calmed down a little bit, but I was shaking because it was so cold in the operating room. And I think it's also because of my adrenaline. Like, my adrenaline was through the roof, so I was shaking, and I thought I was like freezing, but I think it was just the adrenaline. But it was really cold in the operating room. So I think the first thing that they had to do once they had everything set up in the room was give me my epidural. So they had me like flip over to the side, and I basically like when they like I think 2 or 3 people like held me up to like on my side, and they're like, you need to stay really still because we're gonna give you this epidural. You have to try not to move, try not to move, try not to move. And I was shaking from adrenaline and because it was really cold, so it was really hard for me to stay still, but I tried really hard. And they finally were able to put the they put the needle in, and they had to take it out, and they're like, okay, we're gonna try this again. That first one didn't work, so we're gonna try it again. So I was like, oh my god. So I was like shaking, and they finally, the second time, they got it into the correct spot, and immediately like I felt kind of like a tingling. Like I feel like I could still feel the weight of my body, but I just couldn't feel like actual touch. Like it felt pressure. Like I could feel when they were moving my legs all over the place. Like I could feel the pressure of my limbs, but I couldn't feel like my actual skin. Like I couldn't feel actual touch. It was really weird. You know when you get Novocaine in your mouth for like a dentist, and you go like this to your cheek, and you could feel pressure, but you can't actually feel your finger on your cheek? That's exactly how I felt. Like everything from like my boobs down. Like it was intense. So after they did the epidural, I think they put in the catheter. After I was all hooked up and all settled in, they brought Derek in and they put him right next to me. And they're like, okay, so we're gonna start this. And the doctor that actually did the C-section was one of the doctors that I had met at the that other OBGYN. And so she was really young. She was a really young girl. I think she was probably like late 20s, early 30s at the most. She looked really young. Like I wouldn't even say she was in her 30s. She was amazing. She came in and she tried to like calm me down because I was still a little bit freaking out. Like I was still kind of crying a little bit. Actually, to backtrack a little bit, after I got the epidural, like whatever, I don't know if it was that or if it was whatever they put into my IV, something made me so nauseous. I think it was the epidural, I'm not sure, but something made me so nauseous that I was like laying on my back right after they did the epidural, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna throw up, because I knew, like I could feel it coming. So she's like, I'm gonna throw up. Like I feel like the first few times I said it, nobody was like, they were all running around trying to get things done, and they weren't listening to me. So I started screaming, I'm gonna throw up. I started screaming it so loud. They're like, okay, okay, okay. So they came by with one of those like little blue bag things for throw up, and they're like, okay, just turn your head, because I didn't know what I was gonna do. Like I was gonna choke on my own like vomit. So they're like, okay, so turn your head, and they put the bag right up to my cheek, and I just started throwing up. I threw up so much, and it was like nothing. It was like liquid because there was nothing in my stomach to throw up, but I had been drinking a lot of water, so it was just liquid. So she had like, the nurse had the cup thing, like that blue bag, like right on my cheek, and I was literally like just like throwing up onto my cheek. So after I was done throwing up, they like cleaned my face up, and I felt like 100% better after I threw up, so that was good. But I didn't throw up anymore after. Alright, so then they got me all finished, so getting ready, and so they brought Derek in, they sat him next to me, and so they put the curtain up, and they actually put the curtain up like right here, like really close to my face. I always thought it was like in movies and stuff they show it like really low, like mid-belly, but the curtain is really close to me. And so Derek's sitting there, and he's trying to calm me down because I was still kind of crying a little bit. I was really nervous, I was really scared. And they're like, okay, we're gonna start. And so she starts, and I think I got into the operating room at about like, I got there like 8:10, 8:15. No, like I would say around 8. So I got to the operating room at 8. I think they started at like 8:15, 8:20, and literally 10 minutes later she was out. Like it was so quick. You know, the doctor took her out, and she's like, oh, it's baby girl, she's doing great. Like Amara, I don't think she started crying. I don't think she was crying, but as soon as they took her out, they took her to the little, to the little bed area in the corner of the room, and they had Derek go over there really quick. Derek took pictures of her like right when they put her down. You know, they had to kind of speed her up a little bit. and she still had the like a big chunk of the umbilical cord attached to her belly from, you know, from the picture from Derek, what Derek tells me. They took her to that her little bed over by the end of the like corner of the room as they were like finishing up with me. So I guess after they took her out, they had to take the placenta out, and then they had to sew me up. So while I was going through all that, I think they were just taking out the placenta while Derek was still in the room. So then they finished cleaning Amara up. Derek cut her umbilical cord, like the rest of it, you know, and they got her all wrapped up. She started crying when she was over by the table, and when I heard her, because nobody had said anything when they took her out, they said, oh, she's here, and then they went to the table quick, and I was like freaking, oh my god, is she okay, is she okay, is she okay, like, and Derek wouldn't tell me anything because he was like so wrapped up in like her, and then she started crying over there. She was like, oh my god, like she's okay, she's crying. And then they wrapped her up in her little blanket that they had there for her, and they brought her over to my face, and they put her so close, and she was so tiny. Her face was like this big, literally like this big. She was so tiny, and I got to kiss her, and they left her there for a good long while, and that was so nice. It was so good to like be close to her, because like with a C-section you can't just like hold the baby, and since she was so early they had to take her to the NICU. So after I saw her for a little bit. They took her and Derek went with them to the NICU. So they left the room, and then the doctor finished up with me, so she sewed me up, and so once everything was done with me, they took me to post-op. So it's like this area that they put you in for, I had to be there for an hour, I think, to make sure that the epidural wore off before I could go up to like the recovery room. And all this time, obviously I couldn't see her because she was in the NICU. Where Derek got there about 10-15 minutes after I got there. So they put the baby in the NICU, and then they brought Derek back down to where I was at. And we were there, like I was still a little bit like foggy. Like I was awake throughout the whole thing, but like the epidural and all that like really made me tired, so I was like really drowsy, like but she was okay. Derek told me everything was okay with her. She was fine. They put her in the NICU because she was I think it's more than, if the baby is more than 4 weeks early, then the baby automatically has to go to the NICU. So they put her in the NICU, and I kind of knew that was gonna happen because she was so small and she was really early. But Derek told me they checked her all out. They said that she was good, she was okay, she was healthy. She was just really tiny. She was 4 pounds, 12 ounces. She was so small. And so Derek hung out with me the entire time I was at the post-op area. And literally, I think I got to the post-op area around 8:45-ish. So like 15 minutes after I had her. Like she was born, like the time of her arrival was like 8:30. So at like 8:45, 8:50, I was back in the post-op area, and maybe like 10-15 minutes after that I was already like moving my toes. So I feel like that whole thing was so fast. I couldn't believe how fast everything was, and I thought the epidural was gonna last way longer than like an hour. Like it literally just lasted like less than an hour. It was crazy. So once I had feeling like on my foot, like I could move my foot, I could like start moving my knee, like the nurses kept coming in and checking like how far I could feel of my leg. That was interesting. I had drank so much water at that time, and then after the hour, after everything was good with the epidural wearing off, they put me in a recovery room. So this is the point where I don't really remember what happened. I think it was like so much activity or so much stuff. So much stuff had happened. My adrenaline was finally going down, and I was kind of like crashing. So they put me in a recovery room. It was like a high-risk area, so like it was separate from everyone else's recovery area. So it was a bigger room and like more machines and stuff in it, and I was in there. At that point, Derek went with my family. My parents were in the waiting area, his parents were in the waiting area, so like everyone was out there. So they put me in the recovery room to rest because I was like so exhausted. Like it had been like such a stressful morning, and with all the adrenaline and the surgery and everything. So they put me in there to rest. They turned off all the lights and I fell asleep. I think I fell asleep for a couple of hours. I literally don't remember. I know that at one point I woke up and I was like kind of in and out of it, and one of our good friends had got there with his wife, and I hadn't even seen my parents yet, and somehow he had gotten in, like he was able to come into the room. I don't know. I talked to him for a little. I don't even remember what I said because I was so out of it, but I talked to him for maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, and then he left again. And then after that, so I fell asleep again, I think. I'm not really sure. I think I fell asleep. I don't know. And then after maybe an hour, hour and a half, my parents and Derek were able to come in, and my mom brought me flowers, and my sisters came, and they all kind of hung out with me. My grandpa was there too, and they were able to stay there for a little bit, but then like the nurses kind of kicked them out again so I could rest a little bit more. And so it was kind of like that, like the rest of the morning, because I was still so out of it. I don't know what was going on. So then the nurses would come every so often and change my bed pad, because I was like in one of those little front only gowns, and they just had like this big it looks like a puppy pad, you know, those little puppy pads. I think that's actually like pretty close to what it is. So that's what they have on the bed, because you're bleeding so much. Like I was bleeding a lot after the surgery, that's what they had. So the nurse would come every so often, and she would like lift me up and put a new pad under me and kind of like clean me up. And I had a catheter, so I still had the catheter in, so I didn't have to worry about getting up to pee, which was really nice because it would just come out by itself. And then the nurse would also come and push down on my uterus, on my belly. Like she pushed down really hard, and that's to make sure that my uterus is going back down into its normal size. I think that's the thing that happened. It's so painful. It hurt so bad. It was so sore. Like it was so sore, but she didn't do it too hard, and it was only for like a second. So that's basically what my morning consisted of. That whole day I was so in and out of it. I don't really remember much of that day. That was Tuesday morning when I had her. I think I was in that room, in the recovery room, until the following day, and then I woke up that following day, or maybe it was that same day. I honestly don't remember if it was the same day or if it was the day after, but I had, they actually made me get up and walk to the bathroom. Basically they had me, I think they took the catheter out. I think it may have been like later on in the afternoon that same day that I had her. So they took the catheter out, which I thought was going to be painful, but I didn't feel anything. It was like nothing. It was fine. So they took the catheter out, and they said, okay, so we're going to have you go to the bathroom and just like use the bathroom as normal and sit on the toilet for a little bit. So it was so hard to get up, because basically they have to cut, you know, they cut your skin, they cut your muscle to go in and get the baby out. So everything down there is so sore. And one of the things that I learned is that you cannot use your ab muscles when, like, after you have a C-section. It's like it's impossible to use your ab muscle. Like your core is like useless. You can't do anything with your core. So getting out of bed was it was a whole new world for me. They had to show me how to get out of bed because I could not use my core. So basically I like roll onto my side and then grab the side, like the railing of the bed, and like pull myself up with my arms, pull myself up a little bit, and then use my other hand to push up off of the bed. And then like I had Derek and the nurse help me kind of like sit up, and that took me probably like 20 minutes to do. It was the worst. Oh my god, it was awful. But they like make you get up and walk. So I finally was able to get up, and the nurse took me to the bathroom, and as soon as I went to sit on the toilet, like I had to go really slow, but once I got down, a big old clot, like I felt a huge clot, come out, and I was just like, oh my god, what is that? Because it was huge, like huge clot, like huge. I've never had a clot that big in my life. So so they had me do that. I sat on the toilet for a while, and then I was, you know, had to go back in bed. So that was basically the whole day, like that whole day. I didn't see the baby that whole day because they didn't want me to get up. I see, now I can't remember, now I can't put it together. So they might have made me get out of bed the day after I had her. I literally can't remember. So hard for me to remember, but whatever, it was one of those days. So I didn't see her the whole day she was born because they wanted me to rest, and because she couldn't leave the NICU. So that was really hard for me. I was really sad. I would make Derek go, like, be over there the entire time he was allowed, because they have, I don't know, I can't remember if it's every 2 hours or every hour. They have like a little time where like everyone has to leave, and they like kind of like chuck everything or whatever with all the babies. I would make Derek go and be with her the entire time he was allowed to be, take lots of pictures, and then he would come back when they had their break, and he would show me all the pictures. He would tell me everything about her. He like filled me in with everything. So they had asked him if, like, when I was kind of out of it, they had asked him if we were gonna be exclusively breastfeeding, and I don't think he really understood what that meant, and he said yes. So they hadn't given her any milk. She did have an IV in, so she was hydrated, and she was like not gonna be dehydrated because she had the IV in, but they hadn't given her any milk basically that whole first day until I was able, like, until like the end of the day when he told me this, and I was kind of like in my right mind again after being so out of it for the whole day. So when he told me that, I was like, no, go tell them that they could give her a bottle, they could give her formula, like that's fine, until I'm able to go over there and like start trying to breastfeed. Like, I want her to have milk. He went over there, he talked to them, and right away they were like, okay, no problem. So they gave her a tiny little bit of formula because she was so small, and so that's what they started giving her. I knew it was going to be hard for me to breastfeed because she was so early, so my body was like not ready for breast milk. Like, there was no breast milk, there was no leak, like I never had any leakage. I knew that I wasn't going to be breastfeeding like a lot, especially in the beginning, because she was early. Like, she was 5.5 weeks early. So I told Derek, no, go tell them that they could feed her formula, like that's totally fine. Like, I want her to have food, like I can't have her like not eating. So he started feeding her. Like, I guess they started showing him how to do it because she was so small, she would get tired really fast and fall asleep right away. It was a crazy first day. So again, I can't remember if it was the first day that I had her or the next day that I was able to go see her. I really can't remember if it was that same day or the day after. But so I had to get out of bed again, which was so hard. And then they put me in a wheelchair, which was great because then I didn't have to walk, obviously, because I had just had major surgery, you know. They put me in a wheelchair and they wheeled me over to see her for the first time. See, I don't know, I think it might have been the day after. So that whole first day I didn't really see her, I don't think. I'm just gonna stick with that because I can't remember. So I went and they put me in the wheelchair. They wheeled me over to the NICU, and I went in, and she was in her little crib, you know, with the little hood on, and they had a heater on her because they were trying to keep her warm. That was one of the struggles that they had with her. She was so small that she wasn't able to regulate her own temperature yet and like stay warm. So they had a heater on her and a big thick blanket and like around her, but she was like just in a diaper, and they had the heater right on her so it would like go right into her skin. And she was so tiny and so red and so furry. I'll probably insert a little picture. I'll put a picture of what she looked like the first time I saw her in the NICU.
Hi, Amara. Mommy and Daddy are here.
So much.
Mommy and Daddy are here, Amara. We love you so much. We love you so much. Yeah, she's been all over the place.
Amara, Mommy, I love you. You're so hairy. So beautiful and cute.
Whichever one you prefer.
You don't look like a potato.
As long as I have a chair. I'm not one of those chair Nazis. myself, and I'm only at 11, so you might as well get it
I
now.
don't have a preference between these two. I do have preferences.
Amara.
Well, what's like the chair that's like down here, the jet, but Jess Carrier likes.
Amara.
Yeah, she does. I know, but I was trying to get a little early today.
And she was so tiny and so cute. Like, I can't believe that was already a year ago, like over a year ago. Like, I can't believe that. It's crazy. Yeah, but she was so tiny, and right away they wanted me to try to breastfeed, because it's, you know, breastfeeding is a struggle, and being that early I knew it was gonna be hard. So I was able to do skin to skin with her right away. Like, literally, I went in, I looked at her, I like touched her a little bit, and right away they gave her to me to do skin to skin, which was amazing. It was so nice to spend that time with her. And I just like couldn't believe she was there. She was like in my arms. I couldn't believe it. So we did skin to skin, and they had a lactation person come, and she kind of like showed me kind of like the beginning, like some tips and stuff, because I had no idea what I was doing. Obviously, it's my first baby, so it was a big learning curve, and I was not producing any milk really. After, I think the day after, I was making a little bit of colostrum, I think that's what it's called. So I had a little bit of that, but it was really hard for me to get any out, and I like manipulated, and they showed me how to like what to do with my boobs so that I could try to get something out. And she was so small, and that it was really hard for her to get any milk out. It was a lot of effort, and it like took a lot of effort on her part to like get anything out. So she would wear herself out so fast, and she would just fall asleep before she even got anything, which wasn't even much because I wasn't producing hardly anything at that moment. So right away they started telling me how to pump, which I already knew I was gonna have to do when I was like down. I was like, okay, that's fine, that's what's gonna happen. So I was pumping as much as I could during like the time that I wasn't with her, and I was putting her on the breast as much as I could, but again, like, we didn't want to wear her out, so we would do like 5 minutes on each side to try to get her to like get something, but she would like get really tired and fall asleep, so she wasn't really getting anything. So we were still supplementing with formula, which was fine with me. Honestly, I didn't care how she got fed, but as long as she was fed, that's really all that mattered to me. I did want to try breastfeeding, so I wasn't like shutting it down right away. So I was pumping, I was getting a tiny little bit of milk. And the NICU, they have these little vials, so they have little tiny ones, and then like bigger ones, and then bigger ones, and like bigger vials, and that's where you would put your breast milk. So I was literally not even filling up one of the littlest vials on each boob. So it was a struggle for me, but she wasn't really eating as much. So what we would do is I would pump, and then I would pump like 2 or 3 times, and to get kind of like a little bit more of like a few more ounces, or milliliters, because it was such a little bit, and then when I had like enough for one feeding, we would put it in a bottle, and I would bottle feed it to her, and she loved it. It was so cool to see her kind of like chug that down. But she was so tiny. She was in the NICU for 6 days. Yeah, so her first day in the NICU was, so I had her Tuesday, maybe it was a week, I think it was like 6 or 7 days. So then like 6 days later, actually I got released, I think it was Saturday. So I was in the hospital from Tuesday until Saturday because of the C-section, because of my high blood pressure. So it was like a lot of things because they were trying to like control everything. So I got released Saturday, and she had to stay in the hospital in the NICU for a few more days. So that was really hard for me to leave her there, because like I just had my baby and then I had to leave her. So that was really hard for me and for Derek, because we had stayed, like he had stayed with me every night. I think he didn't stay with me one night out of like the 4 days that I was in the hospital, or 5 days I was in the hospital. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, so I was in the hospital for like 5 days, and Derek only slept at the house 1 day out of those 5 days. So it was really hard for us to leave her in the hospital for a few more days until basically they were wanting her weight to go up a little bit and for her to regulate her temperature. So that's what the struggle was, because her lungs were fine, everything was good. She didn't need the ventilator, she didn't need like anything. Like they just had wires connected to make sure, like, to keep track of her heart rate, and they had an IV in the first day. She didn't need it after that because they gave her formula, so she wasn't hooked up to anything other than like the heart monitor. That was it. So I was like so grateful. Like my prayers were heard for sure. Like God was watching over her and made sure that she was okay, because yeah, she was amazing. She was so healthy. She was just a little teeny tiny baby. So her birth weight was 4 pounds 12 ounces. She did go down a little bit in the NICU, and that's like normal for babies to go down after they are born. But then by the time we left the NICU, she was back up to birth weight. So she had gone down to, like, I think it was like 4 pounds 9 ounces or 10 ounces. I don't think, maybe a little bit less than that, but I don't think she went down less than 4 pounds. So then after 6 days, we were able to take her home. She had to pass a car seat test, which was really hard. The first one, I think she failed. Basically, they like strap her into the car seat and they have her in there for an hour, all hooked up to the machines, and they're checking her oxygen and her heart rate and all that. So I think that at the first time her oxygen levels went down a little bit, so she failed that one. And then the second time, I think they waited like a day, so the next day we did the car seat test again, and she passed that time. So she was in there for an hour. It was really stressful for us. Like we were literally just sitting there next to her, like just hoping and praying that everything was okay so we could take her home. And yeah, so that day she passed the car seat test, and we were able to take her home.
What's that? Shh, no. Kaya. Up. Hey, okay. Look at the baby. No. It's a baby. Sister. No, no biting. She'll get used to her.
Planned from like the moment that we found out we were pregnant that that I wanted to stay home the 3 months, and that's what we were gonna do the first 3 months of her life. I was gonna stay home with her. So that was a whole adventure. She was so tiny, and all she did really was sleep. Like she would wake up and I would give her either pumped breast milk or a formula, whatever. If I didn't have enough breast milk, I would give her formula, and that was her routine. Like I would wake up, change her diaper, feed her, and I would pump, and she would sleep, and then she would wake up again, I would feed her, and then I would pump, and then like that was all we did all day. I have some vlogs of those first couple of weeks. I think I put them on my vlog channel, but I'll have them linked below if you want to check those out and see how little she was. But yeah, so I think that's basically it. That's everything I wanted to say. So this was really long. I'm gonna try to edit it as much as possible, make it a little bit shorter if I can. But this was like my whole first pregnancy experience. So I wanted to share with you guys all this because this is just like interesting. I love hearing other people's pregnancy stories and what they're going through and what they've experienced. So I thought I would share mine in case anybody is like feeling how I felt. And just know that like at the end of all that, at the end of all the pain and the nausea and the heartburn and the not sleeping and the peeing 700 times a day, like you get this amazing little miracle. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about anything, let me know in the comments below. Check out the description. I'll have a bunch of other videos linked, and my PCOS experience, my PCOS diagnosis, I guess, story. I'll have that linked below as well as up here in a card. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!